Why is believing the truth about the 3 days and 3 nights so important? Because it's the only sign that was given that proves Jesus was the Son of God. If your Jesus does not fit the sign, you are following a false Messiah. Matthew 12 verses 38 to 40. Some of the scribes and Pharisees came to Jesus and said, "Teacher, we want you to show us a miraculous sign to prove your authority." But Jesus said to them, "Only an evil and adulterous generation would demand a miraculous sign, but the only sign I will give them is the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was in the belly of the great fish for 3 days and 3 nights, so will the Son of Man be in the heart of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. Some people will say that Jesus did many miracles to prove that he was the Son of God, but there have been many people throughout history who have also done miraculous signs. As a matter of fact, the Bible says people will be deceived by signs and wonders. This means that signs and wonders are not enough to prove who Jesus was. Only the fact that God raised Jesus from the dead on the 3rd day, as a fulfillment of the Scriptures, proves he was the Son of God. Romans 1 verse 4, the Holy Spirit proved by a powerful act that Jesus our Lord is the Son of God, because he was raised from the dead. 1 Corinthians 15 verses 3 to 5, I delivered to you first of all that which I also received, that Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures, and that he was buried, and that he rose again the 3rd day according to the Scriptures, and that he was seen by Cephas, then by the 12. Many people are being taught today that Jesus died on Good Friday and rose on Easter Sunday, but you will soon see, this is false. Israel's true Messiah didn't die on Good Friday, nor was he raised from the dead on Easter Sunday. A Good Friday crucifixion and an Easter Sunday resurrection are lies and are not according to the Scriptures. Once you see this, I will be able to show you how they were changed, and who changed them. Before we start, there are a few foundational principles we need to know. The first principle is to understand what the word Sabbath means. The word Sabbath means to rest, in other words, take the day off from work. When God declares a day to be a Sabbath, it's because the day means something to him, so it's important. A Sabbath is similar to a holiday such as the 4th of July. People take the 4th of July off from work to honor what the day represents. Americans call the 4th of July a holiday. God would call it a Sabbath. Some Sabbaths were enacted to be part of the sacrificial system and were fulfilled when Messiah came the first time. They were fulfilled because Messiah became our Passover lamb when he died on the cross for our sin. There is another Sabbath that God enacted before sin was in the world. This Sabbath was to be used as a memorial of creation that testifies of God as Creator. This is the 7th-day Sabbath. God created everything in 6 days, but he didn't stop there. He continued on to make a 7th day in which he declared holy and blessed. Exodus 20 verse 11, In 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but he rested on the 7th day. Therefore, the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and declared it holy. Because the 7th-day Sabbath is a memorial of creation, it cannot be changed to another day, just like the 4th of July cannot be changed to the 10th of July. Every 4th of July we celebrate the 4th of July. In the same way, every 7th day we celebrate the 7th-day Sabbath. We do this because memorials cannot be changed. This is why they're called a memorial. The 7th-day Sabbath is a memorial of creation, so God tells us to take the day off from work to gather for worship. We do this in honor of what the day represents. Leviticus 23 verse 3, You have 6 days in which to do your work. But remember that the 7th day is the Sabbath. On that day do not work, but gather for worship. The Sabbath belongs to the Lord, no matter where you live. The 4th of July is an important day to Americans because they are Americans. In the same way, God's Sabbath should be important to His people because they belong to His kingdom. When we honor the Sabbath, as God calls us to, we testify to the world around us that we belong to God. Ezekiel 20 verse 20, Keep my Sabbaths holy. Let them be a sign between me and you, so that people may know that I am the Lord your God. The whole world honors a 7-day work week because that's the way God created it. If the whole world honored the 7th-day Sabbath, we would not be teaching evolution to our children because the 7th-day Sabbath is a powerful testimony of creation, and God as creator. It testifies of creation because the sun determines the 24-hour day, the moon determines the month, but the only reason why we have a 7-day week is because that's the way God created it, and the whole world follows God's created order. With all this in mind, let me ask you a question. When did Mary buy the spices to anoint Messiah's body? Was it before or after the 7th-day Sabbath? To find this answer, we'll have to go to the book of Luke. Luke 23 verse 56, Then they returned and prepared spices and fragrant oils, and they rested on the Sabbath according to the commandment. According to Luke, Mary bought the spices before the Sabbath began. We know this because how could she prepare them, and then rest on the Sabbath according to the commandment, if the Sabbath was already over? Now let me show you another verse. Mark 16 verse 1, When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome bought spices so that they might go to anoint Jesus' body. Luke said she bought the spices before the Sabbath, and Mark says she bought the spices when the Sabbath was over. We have a contradiction. Many people read these contradictions and give up because they say they can't trust the Bible. The reason there seems to be a contradiction is because of the change that was made to the 3 days and 3 nights. To understand the week of Messiah's crucifixion, we'll have to refer to God's feast days. Most people today have been taught that the feast days have no value, but the feast days is God's road map of what He's doing. Today, the church has thrown out the road map, so now they are lost. With this in mind, let's look at Leviticus 23 because we will learn exactly what's going on during the week of Messiah's crucifixion. When we read Leviticus 23, I want you to pay attention to the 14th and the 15th day. These 2 days take place back to back during the week of Messiah's crucifixion. The 14th is Passover. This is when Messiah is crucified. The very next day of the same month is the 15th. The 15th is the first day of a 7-day feast called the Feast of Unleavened Bread. The 15th is a Sabbath, so they are not allowed to do any work. This is very important to see because today's churches are missing this Sabbath. Leviticus 23 verses 5 to 7, the Lord's Passover is on the 14th day of the first month, beginning at twilight. The Feast of Unleavened Bread begins on the 15th day of the same month. You will eat bread made without yeast for 7 days. On the first day of this feast you will have a holy meeting. It shall be a Sabbath, so you must not do any work. This Sabbath is very important to see because it tells us that during the week of Messiah's crucifixion, there were 2 Sabbaths. The Sabbath that takes place on the 15th is not a normal Sabbath because it only comes once a year, so they call it a high day. Messiah died on Passover the 14th, and because the 15th was the high Sabbath, they didn't want the bodies on the cross. We find this being talked about in John. Keep in mind, John is not talking about the 7th-day Sabbath, he's talking about the high Sabbath. They even call it the high Sabbath. The 7th-day Sabbath is never called the high Sabbath because it comes every week. Keep in mind that Passover is the 14th, and since the 15th is a Sabbath, the 14th is a preparation day. A preparation day is a day before a Sabbath. They use it to get things done because you can't work on a Sabbath. Let's read about it in John. John 19 verse 31. Since it was the preparation day, the Jews did not want the bodies to remain on the cross on the Sabbath, for that Sabbath was a high day. It was the high Sabbath that Mary had to wait to be over so that she could buy the spices. This means it was a Friday when she bought the spices. We know this because after she bought them and prepared them, she rested on the Sabbath according to the commandment. This was the 7th-day Sabbath. Let me take you step by step through the week of Messiah's crucifixion, and then we will refer to my chart. The chart will make things very clear. Mark 14 talks about the Lord's Supper. This is when Messiah breaks the bread and tells Judas to go and do what he's going to do quickly, which is betray Messiah for 30 pieces of silver. This is happening at twilight on Tuesday. Mark 14 verse 22, as they were eating, Jesus took bread, and after blessing it broke it and gave it to them, and said, "Take, this is my body." Judas leaves during the Last Supper and returned after sunset. We know this because when Judas returned with the soldiers to arrest Messiah, they were carrying lanterns and torches. We find John 18 talking about this. John 18 verses 2-3, Now Judas, who betrayed Jesus, also knew the place, for Jesus often met there with his disciples. So Judas, having procured a band of soldiers and some officers from the chief priests and the Pharisees, went there with lanterns and torches and weapons. In Messiah's day, a new day started when the sun sets, so Tuesday after sunset is now Wednesday, the 14th, which is now Passover. This is when they arrest Messiah, and have an illegal trial. All day Wednesday they torture him, and crucify him, and he dies at twilight on Wednesday as the Passover lamb. They don't want him on the cross when the sun sets because it will now be the 15th, the high Sabbath. Now let's look at my chart. The Lord's Supper took place on Tuesday the 13th at twilight. Judas left to get the soldiers, so when he got back it was already dark. In Messiah's day, a new day started at sunset, so Tuesday at sunset is now Wednesday the 14th and is now Passover. They arrest Messiah and crucify him on Passover, which is according to the feast of Passover. They take Messiah from the cross and place him in the tomb just before sunset. They did this because the next day is the 15th, so it's the high Sabbath, and they didn't want the bodies to be on the cross for the Sabbath. This is the Sabbath that Mary had to wait to be over so that she could buy the spices to anoint Messiah's body. The high Sabbath was Thursday, so when the Sabbath was over it became Friday. Friday was a normal workday, so Mary was able to buy the spices. Mary buys the spices, but by the time she buys them and prepares them, the 7th-day Sabbath started, so she rests on the Sabbath according to the commandment. Now here's the important thing to see. You can't fit Wednesday, the Passover, Thursday the high Sabbath, Friday the normal work day, and Saturday, the 7th-day Sabbath between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. They don't fit. And besides, Friday to Sunday is not 3 days and 3 nights. If your Jesus doesn't fit the only sign that Messiah gave to prove who he was, you're following a false Messiah. There's another very important truth that pastors are not telling you, that will 100% refute a Good Friday crucifixion. Pay close attention to John 19 verses 25-26, because it's talking about Passover, not Good Friday. John 19 verses 25-26. The mother of Jesus and her sister Mary, the wife of Cleophas, were standing near the cross. Mary Magdalene was there also. Jesus saw his mother and the follower whom he loved standing near. He said to his mother, "Woman, behold your son." Pastors are telling you this is Good Friday, but it's actually happening on Passover, which was Wednesday the 14th. Friday was the normal work day when the high Sabbath was over, which is when Mary bought the spices. Mark 16 verse 1. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome bought spices so that they might go to anoint Jesus' body. When you read Luke 23:56, it's a continuation of them buying the spices on that Friday, right after the high Sabbath. Luke 23 verse 56. Then they went home and prepared spices and ointments to anoint his body. But by the time they were finished, the Sabbath had begun, so they rested on the Sabbath according to the commandment. Now here's the important thing that people are missing. How could they be at the cross watching Jesus die on Good Friday, and at the same time be buying spices, returning home to prepare them, and then stopping to rest on the Sabbath according to the commandment? They didn't, because Jesus died on Passover, 2 days prior to Friday. Remember my chart. Wednesday the 14th was Passover, Thursday the 15th was the high Sabbath, Friday was a normal workday, so they bought the spices, Saturday was the 7th-day Sabbath, so they rested on the Sabbath according to the commandment. All these changes to God's appointed times and law were prophesied through the prophet Daniel to happen, but not with God's approval. Daniel 7 verse 25, "He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints, and shall intend to change times and law. The system that changed God's times and law has a man at its head who claims to be above the Bible because he believes he is God. 2 Thessalonians 2 verses 3-4, Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. This system is the Roman Catholic Church, and the man at its head is the papacy. He is the one who changed God's times and law because he believes he has the power to do it. The Pope has the power to change times, to abrogate laws, and to dispense with all things, even the precepts of Christ. The Pope has the authority and often exercised it, to dispense with the command of Christ. The Pope can modify divine law. Ferrari's Ecclesiastical Dictionary. The Convert's Catechism of Catholic Doctrine. Question: Which is the Sabbath day? Answer: Saturday is the Sabbath day. Question: Why do we observe Sunday instead of Saturday? Answer: We observe Sunday instead of Saturday because the Catholic Church, in the Council of Laodicea, AD 364, transferred the solemnity from Saturday to Sunday. Sunday is our mark of authority, the Church is above the Bible, and this transference of Sabbath observance is proof of that fact. Catholic Record of London, Ontario, September 1, 1923. The Pope is the man who changed God's times and law because he claims to be God. The Pope is of so great dignity, and so exalted that he is not a mere man. He is, as it were, God on earth, sole sovereign of he faithful of Christ, Chief of Kings, having plenitude of power. Lucius Ferraris, Prompta Bibliotheca. How were they able to change the seventh-day Sabbath to Sunday the first day? They did it by forcing you to believe that Jesus died on Good Friday and rose from the dead on Easter Sunday. So because of this, Sunday is now the Lord's Day. But you now know this is false. The man who sits over the Roman Catholic Church is called the man of lawlessness because he changed God's times and law, as defined by the Torah and the prophets. The Torah are the first 5 books of the Bible, and the prophets are the writings of the prophets. Today we know the Torah and the prophets as the Old Testament. The early church called the teachings of Messiah the Way. Messiah's life and teachings were founded on the Torah and the prophets, and is what the early church used to form their doctrines and define righteousness. Acts 24 verse 14. I admit that I worship the God of our ancestors as a follower of the way, which they call a cult. I believe everything that is in accordance with the Torah and that is written in the prophets. When the Pope changed what Messiah taught, he was doing away with the Torah and the prophets, so everything being taught in churches today is different. Everything from Sunday worship, Christmas, Easter and Good Friday, just to name a few. Just about everything being taught today in churches is forbidden by God according to the Torah and the prophets. Deuteronomy 12 verses 29-31. Do not fall into the trap of following the customs of the other nations and worshipping their gods. Do not inquire about their gods, saying, How do these nations worship their gods? I want to follow their example. You must not worship the Lord your God the way the other nations worship their gods, for they perform for their gods every detestable act that the Lord hates. God calls today's system of worship Babylon because it's all rooted in pagan sun worship, such as Sunday being the Lord's day. In Roman culture, Sunday was the day of the sun god. In paganism, the sun was a source of life, giving warmth and illumination to mankind. Sunday Wikipedia. Even Easter is rooted as sun worship, not to mention all the other pagan holidays and rituals, such as Christmas. December 25th was observed as the birthday of the sun as part of the ancient Roman festival called Saturnalia. It was also the date of the birthday of the pagan sun god Mithras, sometimes also spelled Mitra. The Catholic Encyclopedia. The message to God's people in these last days is to come out of Babylon. Revelation 18 verse 4. Then I heard another voice calling from heaven, Come out of Babylon, my people. Do not take part in her sins, or you will be punished with her. Sun worship, with all its attachments, continues today through the papacy and everyone else who follows the same false system of worship. Let's return back to the foundations of the faith, which was founded on the Torah and the prophets as taught and lived by Messiah. 1 John 2 verse 6, the one who says he abides in God ought himself also walk just as Jesus walked. Churches today cannot say they believe and practice everything that is in accordance with the Torah and the prophets, as defined by the true Son of God. They can't say this because they've been following a false Messiah, who was created by the papacy in 325 AD. When you follow today's Jesus, you are actually being led away from the Torah and the prophets, to a false system of sun worship that God calls Babylon. Have a blessed and happy Sabbath.